Greetings, ladies and gents. Well, sure, let's just crack on and get on to our Romeo and Juliet. So, we're looking at Act 1, Scene 3, and we are inside the house of the Capulets just before the party. So, if you remember, the last thing that happened that we saw was Lord Capulet decided he was going to have a party, and he sent a messenger out to give all the kind of great and good of Verona an invite, anyone obviously who wasn't a Montague. He sent his servant out, and of course he didn't know that the servant couldn't read. Romeo and Benvolio bump into the servant, read the list, see that Rosaline is on the list, so they decide to crash the party. Okay, so we're taking it from there. We're back in the house of the Capulets, and we want to see what happens next. Okay, so three things happen in this particular scene. First is that Lady Capulet wants to have a word with her daughter. Second, the nurse reminisces about about like Juliet's past and about being a kid and all that kind of stuff. And then Lady Capulet, the third thing then is Lady Capulet tells Juliet about the proposal that Paris has made. Now, just a note on the nurse. It's not a nurse as in a doctor and nurse, being sick. It's a nurse as in a nursemaid. So it's like a nanny or somebody who's paid to look after children. Okay, so here we go. We'll go through this bullet point. So this is what you're looking out for in the bit of the play that we're going to see. Okay, so the Capulet party, the Capulet household is preparing for the party. Lady Capulet wants to have a word with her daughter Juliet beforehand. Lady Capulet reckons that Juliet, though not yet 14, so only 13 years old, is a good age to be married. Juliet's nurse becomes very nostalgic at the thought of Juliet being all grown up, and she recalls a funny story about Juliet as a toddler. Now, remember, this is English class funny. It's not really funny. It's kind of like, as opposed to, Okay, the next thing then is that Lady Capulet tells Juliet that Paris is interested in her, and both she and the nurse wax lyrical. They say great things about Paris. He's not just young, he's handsome, he's well connected, he's rich, he's going to be really kind. Did I mention he's handsome, etc. So Juliet doesn't seem particularly excited. Remember, she's 13, but agrees to keep an open mind if it will keep her mum and dad happy. Now, the thing is, Juliet is a good girl. She wants to do the right thing. Up until, this point, she has been, her history is of being incredibly pliant and, she's always done the right thing as far as her mum and dad are concerned. She's very obedient. Okay, so let's just watch the video and see how we get on.
Nurse, where's my daughter? Call her forth to me.
I bade her come. What lamb? What ladybird? Oh, God forbid. Where's this girl? What, Juliet?
How now? Who called?
Your mother.
Madam, I am here. What is your will?
This is the matter. Nurse, give leave a while. We must talk in secret. Nurse, come back again. I have remembered me. Thou's hear our counsel. Thou knowest my daughter's of a pretty age.
Faith, I can tell her age into an hour. Susan and she, God rest all Christian souls.
Susan is the nurse's dead daughter.
With God. She was too good for me. I remember it well. 'Tis since the earthquake, and she was weaned. I never shall forget it of all the days of the year upon that day. For I had then laid wormwood to my dug, sitting in the sun under the dove-house wall. My lord and you were then at Mantua. Nay, I do bear a brain. But as I said, when it did taste the wormwood on the nipple of my dog and felt it bitter, pretty fool to see it tetchy and fall out with the dog. Shake, quoth the dove house. 'Twas no need, I trow, to bid me trudge. And she could have run and waddled all about, for even the day before she broke her brow. And then my husband, God be with his soul, who was a merry man, took up the child. Yea, quoth he, dost thou fall upon thy face? Thou wilt fall backward when thou comest of age, wilt thou not, Jewel? And by my holidam, the pretty wretch left crying and said, "Aye." To see now how a jest shall come about, I warrant I should live 1,000 years, I never should forget it. Wilt thou not, Jewel, quoth he, and pretty fool, it stinted and said, "Aye."
And didn't thou too, I pray thee, nurse, say aye.
Peace I have done. God mark thee to his grace. Thou wast the prettiest babe that e'er I nursed, and I might live to see thee married once I have my wish.
Mary. That, Mary, is the very theme I came to talk of. Tell me, daughter Juliet, how stands your disposition to be married?
It is an honor that I dream not of.
An honor. Were not I thine only nurse, I would say thou hadst sucked wisdom from thy teat.
Well, think of marriage now. Younger than you, here in Verona, ladies of esteem are made already mothers.
Younger
By
than
my
13.
count, I was your mother much upon these years that you are now a maid. Thus then, in brief, the valiant Paris seeks you for his love.
A man, young lady. Lady, such a man as all the world. Why, he's a man of wax.
Verona's summer hath not such a flower.
Nay, he's a flower, in faith, a very flower.
What say you? Can you love the gentleman this night? You shall behold him at our feast. Read o'er the volume of young Paris' face and find delight writ there with beauty's pen. Examine every married lineament. See how one another lends content, and what obscured in this fair volume lies, find written in the margin of his eyes. This precious book of love, this unbound lover, to beautify him only lacks a cover. That book in many's eyes doth share the glory that in gold clasps locks in the golden story. So shall you share all that he doth possess by having him, making yourself no less.
No less. Nay, bigger. Women grow by men.
Speak briefly, can you like of Paris love?
I'll look to like if looking liking move. But no more deep will I endart mine eye than your consent gives strength to make it fly.
Madam, the guests are come. I beseech you follow straight.
We follow thee. Juliet, the county stays.
Go, girl. Seek happy nights to happy days.
Okay, so, what the hell was that all about? Loads of words, lots of kind of people laughing in the audience, lots of what? Okay, so we'll go through it and see what it's all about. So the first 16 lines then are about Lady Capulet looking to have a word with her daughter. The household is preparing. Lady Capulet asks the nurse to fetch Juliet, and then Juliet arrives straight away. Remember, I said she was a very obedient child. She says, "Madam, I am here. What is your will? What do you want me to do?" Lady Capulet remarks that Juliet is turning into a striking young woman. She says, "My daughter is of a pretty age." She and the nurse then discuss Juliet's age, confirming that she has just entered young adulthood. She is not 14, so she's 13. Then we have the nurse. Now this is, it introduces the character of the nurse very well, because she is of a lower class than Juliet and her mother. And we can see that in the way that she kind of carries on. So nurse and Juliet, they have a strong bond ever since Juliet was little. Oh, Christ, hold on. Right, so ever since Juliet was little and the nurse breastfed her, she said, "Thou wast the prettiest babe that e'er I nursed." That "e'er" there, that means ever. So it was common at the time for wealthy people to hire a wet nurse to breastfeed their children. Okay. The nurse becomes sentimental at the thought that Juliet is grown up. So she is somebody who likes to think back to when Juliet was a child. Now remember, Juliet, the reason she's a wet nurse is because she had a child around the same time that Lady Capulet had Juliet, but the nurse's child died. The nurse's child was Susan, so that's how she was able to breastfeed Juliet. Okay, so she starts to reminisce then about the earthquake 11 years ago when she was trying to wean Juliet. To wean means to stop breastfeeding. She fondly recalls the incident where the young Juliet fell over and broke her brow. So she hit her forehead. The nurse finds this anecdote so hilarious that she repeats it several times. The annoying Lady Capulet tells her to hold thy peace. Shut up. However, the nurse only actually shuts up when Julia asks her to. Also, there is a joke in the middle of that, which is quite rude, where the nurse talks about how Juliet was a little one and she fell over and hit her head. And the nurse's husband picked her up and said, "Oh, Juliet, are you falling forward? Well, when you're an adult, you'll fall on your back," meaning that you will be engaged in getting it on. And the hilarious joke is that Julia, as a little 2-year-old, went, "Yes, I will." So, ha 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 ha. Okay, so the third bit of this scene in the last bit is where Lady Capulet tells Juliet about Paris's proposal. So remember, he is the cream of the crop. So Lady Capulet regains control of the conversation, asks Juliet how she feels about getting married, and Juliet responds that she's not really interested. She hasn't really thought about it. Well, she's 13. So it's an honour that I dream not of, she says. Marriage isn't something she's given much thought to. In fact, probably hasn't crossed her mind. So Lady Capulet tells her it's time to start thinking about it. She says, "Well, think of marriage now." She puts a bit of pressure on her daughter, pointing out that many Veronese ladies, even younger than Juliet, have already married and already become mothers. And Lady Capulet herself was a mother at Juliet's age. She's not that old. She finally cuts to the chase. She says, "The valiant Paris seeks you for his love." Valiant means brave, by the way. So Lady Capulet and the nurse immediately start praising Paris to the skies, calling him man of wax, like he's like an idol and a flower. Lady Capulet says that Paris will be at the party later and that Juliet will get a chance to admire him for herself. She says, "Read o'er the volume of young Paris's face." Imagine that Paris is a book, his face is a book. Read it and find delight writ there with beauty's pen, and just kind of like look at how beautiful he is. Handsomeness is written all over him. He's a big ride. Lady Capulet points out that it's an advantageous match for Juliet. She says, "So shall you share all that he doth possess." You will have a share of everything that he possesses. So, if you, by having him, making yourself no less so, that means that, like, if you get married to him, he's the same social class as you, if not a little bit better. Remember, Paris is a relation of the Duke, or the Prince, rather. Sorry, the Prince. So that makes him quite the catch. Okay, so Paris is after all a nobleman, and marriage to him will mean plenty of money and social prestige. Finally, she asks Juliet if she wants to accept the proposal. She says, "Speak briefly. Can you like of Paris's love? What do you think? Will you, are you down with the plan?" And Juliet responds carefully. She tells her mother that she'll have a look at Paris, but seems doubtful that she could like him just from looking at him. She says, I will look at him, hoping to like him, if liking move. If I am moved to like him by looking at him. Meaning, I hope that I will like him, but I'm not sure based on his looks. She promises she won't take it any further without her mother's permission. She said, "But no more deep will I endart mine eye, then your consent gives strength to make it fly. So she's, she's willing to go along with her mother's wishes, but she doesn't exactly seem thrilled about it. She's, remember her father in the previous scene has said that she's, too young for marriage, and, Juliet probably feels too young for marriage herself. So a servant enters and tells him that the party has started. Lady Capulet reminds Juliet that Paris is waiting for her. Juliet, the county stays, so he's Count Paris. And the nurse tells Juliet to go and have some fun. She says, go girl, seek happy nights to happy days. The nurse is always, being a little bit, go on. Okay, so homework then. All I really want you to do is I want you to have a look at the simple questions. The first 11, just the first 11 questions, and do those. And you can submit them either on Edmodo, you can email me, or if you are, either email me, like type them up if you can. If you can't, just do them in your copy and take a screenshot and upload that to Edmodo. Okay, tune in, and on Wednesday we will do some more.